Hello everyone. We started out the class with a video, so let me finish up with one because there are a couple important things that I think a little bit of a verbal explanation might help out on. The first issue of importance is that we are about halfway through the final week of the class and there are still a couple people that do not have an approved topic for the term paper. So I just want to stress that your grade will be 0 for the term paper if you do not write about what the term paper is supposed to be about, and that is the comparison of two graphic designers from clearly different design movements. A lot of you think this is a fine art class, or just art in general, conceptual art. It is not. It is a graphic design class, and I will direct you to some of the posts or announcements that I put up in the past where I've tried to make that really clear. So I am in Canvas and Student Views. If you in Student View, so it should look very similar to yours. If I go to Modules, go all the way down here to Final Term Paper. You can see here's the introduction and here's the topic. Please read this over very, very carefully before you submit that. And as I mentioned in this week's announcement, please apply logic to that. A lot of people I don't want to even say make the mistake because it's great when you're passionate about what you're doing, but you still have to apply that logic. And what a lot of people do is they kind of read this and they just jump in and then they let their enthusiasm for what they're writing about take over and they really forget to answer the fundamental questions. Get down to what the fundamental topic is, which is comparing two designers that came from clearly different movements. It's not going to be a good paper if they came from very similar movements, right? The whole idea is to say, wow, look how strange this is. Person A comes from this movement, person B comes from this movement. The movements are so different. All of the work I would expect to come from these two different movements should be clearly different, but yet if I compare person A to B and look at a couple of their works, I can see there's actually some stuff here that is very similar. Now, the fact that they both design logos, no. The fact that they both design posters, no. That's not a similarity. Well, it's a similarity in the job, the work that they do, but we're looking for more of similarities in what you've been reading about as far as the fundamentals of graphic design. So specifically, there should be a look that's similar, a style, a concept or a purpose of the work. And purpose being a logo, that's too vague, way too vague. So it should be like if they both do make logos, that's great, but a lot of people make logos, so you should be saying between person A's logo and person B's logo, look how they use, and I don't want to give things away or steer your paper, but look how they do blah blah blah, or look how they do blah blah blah. There are very clearly similarities here, even though these two people come from different design movements. And focus on what I have just said here rather than saying so and so grew up in Poland as a poor Polish boy and had to sell donuts for a living. And I mean, pretty soon you've wasted 2, 3 paragraphs and you're not talking about what the paper's about. It's a pretty short paper, so stay on topic. The other thing that I have available for you here is the announcements, and the last several announcements have really been geared at getting you focused towards this term paper. So going back to week 5, what is the difference between fine art and graphic design? In fine art, I'm kind of using generally to describe other than graphic design, but we know not all people that are considered artists, not graphic designers, designers are not always fine artists. I mean, some of them are conceptual artists. Some of them, couldn't paint to save their lives, but that doesn't make them graphic designers. So please read more here. And then similarly, in weeks 6 and 7, I continue this topic of, doing my best to let you know what the difference is, especially, from the point of view of the person who will be grading your paper. So, I do want to say most of you are doing great, but I'm just trying not to have that 1 or 2 people who end up failing the class and then you can blame me if you want to, but what I'm trying to show you here is that I'm doing every effort I can to make sure you clearly know what is being asked of you. And like I said, this week I really talked a lot about logic, which I think will help a lot of you in future classes, not only in just this term paper. Okay, and the other thing I want to discuss as we are getting close to the final grades getting put in for this class is at the last minute I was looking over this class and I thought I better remove the review questions for week 7 and the discussion question for week 8, thinking that you had more than enough work to prepare for the term paper. But because of this, the total points listed in the back of the syllabus or in the grade section of the syllabus is not the same. So in the syllabus it lists 321 as the maximum points. It is more like 289 points right now. How does that affect you? It doesn't really have a big effect. If you received, say, 90% of the points you could receive on everything in the class, and you received 90% of the points that you could receive on the final term paper, you will still get a 90% in the class. Now, if that concerns you, though, I will do something about it. But for those who are not concerned at all about this, you don't have to watch any more of this. But if you think that you might be, you should probably watch, because you have to make a decision right away. So if you would like access to the full amount of points, all I have to do is go into Canvas and make those 2 assignments that I just mentioned up here available to you. But once you do them, they do become part of your grade. The only way I would see that this could benefit anybody is, and I wouldn't roll the dice on this one, or hopefully no one's thinking this way, but if you think your term paper is going to be a disaster, and it's 50 points out of 289, and you can do the math if you want to, or 50 points out of 321, it will have less an effect on your grade. But that would assume that you have to do good on the announcement, or I'm sorry, not announcement, but discussion question and the review questions to even make that make any sense. So if you're a good student or even a decent student, I would say just put the effort on making a good term paper. Read everything I have. If you understand the person who's grading your work, this is another big hint for navigating through college. If you understand what the professor is after, it makes your life like 99% simpler in their classes. I mean, sometimes, and I shouldn't be giving so much away, but I just think it's valuable information. If you put yourself in the instructor's position and think, wow, we're covering a lot here, what can they reasonably expect me to take away from this when they ask me to write about something or memorize certain pieces of work or whatever it is? Kind of, do that. Put yourself in that situation and say, how could I make an efficient class and not have the class, have an uproar against me because it wasn't fair? Also wanting them to learn and walk away and feel like they got something out of it. A lot of times just doing little exercises like that will make the class a bit easier and more enjoyable for you. So that's my suggestion. So again, without these 2 assignments, the total points for the class becomes 289. To find out what the letter grades are for those, you just simply multiply that by, say, for an A, 0.9, for a B, 0.8, for a C, 0.7. So just as an example here, an A out of 289 points is 260 points. Do you really need to even worry about that? No, because Blackboard does it automatically. If you notice, the grades shown in Blackboard are in percentages, so it's already figured out for you. Give you another little example right here. Like, say, like right now, you're sitting at exactly an 80% in the class, and you've done everything but the term paper. Can you figure out what you need to get on the term paper to keep your 80% grade? Yes. Take 80%, multiply by the term paper points, so you have term paper is worth 50 points. Multiply that by 80%, which is 0.8, and you say, okay, I need to get 40 out of 50 points on that to maintain exactly the B that I'm getting in the class. Okay, so that's all I have. As always, feel free to email me your questions, and let's make the last week and the term papers awesome.